Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, the Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of three amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sankofa the second, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. Make sure you are listening to Wes and Blake Silverman over on the Pin Down on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel. Make sure you are reading and subscribe to everything O2 is doing over on the Detroit Free Press. And of course, the free Motor City Hoops Substack, which listen, O2, we got a preseason game less than a week away. So my content over on the Motor City Hoops Substack is definitely going to be picking up. Also, a quick shout out. We started a game theory Substack. There is a fee for that subscription, but a lot of NBA draft, NBA content in video form over there. So the Pistons do currently have their first round pick in 2026. I'll be doing a lot of video breakdowns on prospects in that range over there. So if you have it in you, that's a great way to support game theory. But O2, offseason O is gone. He will return in 10 months. Omari Sankofa the second, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press, is back. Cam says good morning. Good morning, Cam.
Morning, Cam.
This is probably the last morning one we'll have to do. My youngest son plays flag football on Tuesdays the last few weeks. His season is over tonight. I think we'll be able to go in the evenings moving forward. But what's it like to be back, O2? Media day yesterday.
It's great. It's like the first day of school. Like my personal off season rule, and I waited to change my name, but really I've been back for 3 weeks now. But I like holding on to off season though until I actually get to media day because he's going to be gone for a little bit. But media day is fun. This job is fun. Like the anticipation of getting to preseason, I think is fun. It's crazy that. Yeah, it's September 30th, so we're less than a week away from them playing the Grizzlies in Memphis. And yeah, it's just fun. The atmosphere, just the energy for this season, I think feels different coming off of last year. This easily was the most optimistic media day I've been a part of, through the Pistons, obviously, and then also Grizzlies in 2019. So, a lot of energy in the building yesterday, a lot of momentum, a lot of excitement. And, I think some of that kind of rubs off on you, too, as a reporter, given that you're writing about these guys. So,
yeah, I mean, it seemed a very optimistic media day. It seemed like the team was ready to go. We'll get into all of it. I don't want to spoil too much of it here to start. So here's how we're going to do this, everybody. For me, the best way for me to do it is kind of categorized by themes or players and not necessarily like, hey, these are all the things Trajan said, because Trajan may have said one thing about Cade and then JB said one thing about Cade and then Cade said something about Cade and all of that. So how it works in my mind, and this may not work for everybody. I know Wes and I always go back and forth on this outline because I'll put it one way and then he'll reorganize it another. Is we're just going to stay with the theme. So we may talk offseason development, and that may come from quotes from, we have Trajan, we have B. Stu, we have JB, we have Cade, we have Tobias Harris. We have quotes from 5 different people on the offseason development and how the roster construction came together, then expectations, and then, individual players. And a lot of theirs will be their own quotes and what they said, but there will be a little bit of overlap. So I want to get this one off the books to start here, O2. I think this may be the most important thing. Some may argue the JI and JD contracts, which we'll talk about those when we get to them. Not a whole lot of information there. A little bit from Trajan. But health-wise, Trajan said everyone is healthy other than Colby Jones, who had, I believe, what he said was a left ankle. So seems like everybody's good to go. Stu's ready to go. Ausar's ready to go. JI's ready to go. And maybe he sounded like Colby Jones thing even wasn't super serious. Anything more to add to that quote from Trajan on just the health of this roster overall?
No, that's pretty much it. He made a point to sort of address that initially, like knowing that some of the questions were going to be, hey, how's JI doing? And how's Isaiah Stewart doing? And the news that they're fully healthy for camp obviously is good news. I know the year before it looked like they were healthy, and then Monte Morris got hurt. I actually think they were healthy coming into last season too, though. So
Well, Ausar was still dealing with the blood clot
That's
stuff,
right.
though. There
That's
was at
right.
least uncertainty on what his status was.
That's right. So you still had a SAR with the blood clot situation last year. So I mean, a lot of talk was just about the health situation. Ivy, talked a lot about just his rehab process and coming back. Isaiah Stewart, said verbatim, I think we would have won, or it would have been a different outcome, is what he said, had he been healthy. So that bodes well going into the season. Knock on wood, obviously. That's always a situation that's fluid, but they are healthy. Apparently, they look really good, and ideally, that'll help them maintain that momentum from last season.
One other thing too is O2. This is the last podcast we're gonna have to do in a lot of months without an actual game to talk about. Like, that doesn't mean we won't talk roster construction and trade deadline and stuff like that. But essentially, moving forward, we're gonna have some sort of actual on-court basketball that has been played, starting with that preseason game in Memphis that you mentioned on Monday. I want to go to the offseason development next, and then we'll kind of work forward from there into how the roster came together, expectations, where they're at with the young core, and then, like I said, individual players, J.I., Cade, etc. So I want to start with this first quote from Trajan because I just found this interesting. I think even as someone that has been around this world for 5 years now doing this podcast, this is the start of my 6th season, actually. Also, we're very close to our 200th episode. So if anybody has any ideas or stories or anything they want to share, that'd be really cool. I was looking at our first one, O2, February 15th, I think, and 2022. So here in a few months, we will be 4 years going on the podcast, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy.
That doesn't even sound real. But
I know.
Man, it's been a lot of fun, man. Been a lot of fun. 200 of these.
Kept it together. We've obviously have been able to meet in person and hang out, meet families, all of that. But back to the Pistons. Trajan said working with the players and finding different locations to do so. I found that interesting. And then a lot of guys were in Detroit this last month. What was kind of your perception on, and there's some other quotes here as well, and you may steal some of them, and that's fine. But what was kind of your perception on the theme of the offseason development, how they went about it, how it came together? I thought him saying how they found different locations, I think kind of speaks to the offseason for an NBA organization in terms of finding ways to work with your players and make sure they're doing the things they need to be doing.
Yeah, some of that's just Tom Gores. He always hosted the team out in California. JD mentioned seeing Cade down in Texas, and I think they actually had a pretty big group down there this year, and just the consistent word was just 100%. Like everybody was dialed into all the offseason stuff. The word coming out of this last month of practice is that it's been a full gym, which is unheard of, for a full NBA team to essentially report early and get to work, and that's, that 100% participation too. So that speaks to the excitement and the confidence and belief that they have going into the season, obviously. But in Vegas, I think they have full participation, with the exception maybe of Karras, who wasn't there initially. I forget, but I believe eventually they did get to 100%.
Yeah, I mean, so to that Tobias Harris, the teams had 100% participation in offseason workouts. The group got together in Vegas, Texas, San Diego, building that camaraderie, but at the same time holding each other accountable as a collective group and making sure guys individually are taking strides. Stu said something similar, whether it's been meeting up at different spots this summer, which we did as a team, spending time with each other, getting work in. Also, everybody coming back to Detroit pretty early and getting in sync and getting work together. It's been great. Okay, I want to ask about something a little different than this first, and then I have one more point I want to make. What was kind of the vibe? Because I think it's easy for teams on September 29th to talk about camaraderie and chemistry and locker room, and we like each other and we hang out and we're boys, and your record is 0-0, and but like, you've been in a lot of these media days, you've been around locker rooms, you've listened to coaches. Here's my example. Everything I've heard, Indiana was different last year compared to your usual NBA team in terms of their chemistry and camaraderie and selflessness and all of that? Does there seem to be something truly building with this team based on last year, based on comments at media day? You've been in a lot of these. Is it always this kind of like, we like each other, we're happy to be here? Or is it more business as usual? Like, what is your vibe about this team in regards to that specifically, and kind of how in sync and connected they are?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that multiple guys on the team have talked about. Is just the camaraderie. I think it was Karras yesterday who mentioned it's almost like a college team, just with the energy uh, and joy that's been in the building. Media day obviously could be business like a lot of years for this team. There's been a lot of caution, I would say. Good morning, Mom. My mom's on the pod. So, in order, hold on. Give me the question again. I don't know why that threw me off so much.
Moms threw O2 up. Moms for the win, always.
Yeah.
Just the chemistry of the team and kind of what you've seen with
So,
it.
just from a chemistry standpoint, I think you could definitely tell that things were a little bit different this year, a little bit more upbeat. You're not having to talk about the disappointment of like the previous season or anything. Like, you're not having to say we're going to be better. This is why. It's just really about momentum. But this group really does seem to be genuinely close. You talk about chemistry around the league, and JB said it. Like, other people have said it. Like, they believe this Pistons team, is up there with any team, if not the best. So winning has something to do with that. And I think the big thing too is like last year was the turnaround season. So now you have expectations, and can you maintain that kind of loose vibe and energy? Once you actually start playing games and a couple losses come. But compared to any media day I've been to, that was probably the most optimistic for sure.
Yeah, this is interesting. YouTube user says Duncan seemed to understand how effective "quote unquote" heat culture was, but seemed to be relieved to be in an upbeat but also serious team. And so I'm sure there's different vibes around teams based on, kind of who they are and all of that. I want to talk about one more thing with this offseason development. I thought it was the biggest thing that stood out, at least to me. So Cade said, I'm shrinking his overall quote. He named a bunch of names and said, "I feel bad now. I'm naming names because I'm missing out names. It's been a great summer. This has been the biggest offseason workouts I've ever seen. The best ran, most efficient, and I think it's going to lead into a great year for us." And to me, that leads right into this quote from JB. This was one of my biggest takeaways. These are the type of things that I look at and really, lean into whenever I listen to media day stuff. JB said, last year was an investigative state, who we have and what we have. Until you coach a guy, it's hard to make decisions, ... Made decisions based on experience this year. We're making decisions based on experiences from last year into this offseason. Intentionality of decisions. Overall, for me, paraphrasing, the first year was investigative, and this offseason they had intentionality. Like, there's a huge difference between those things. And so it also sounded like to me there was more in-house work from the players than necessarily going out with their own guys. That just really stood out to me, where JB was very specific about last offseason, we didn't necessarily know what we had. We were trying to figure it out. And then after coaching them for a whole season, having it come together, all of that, we were able to like create a very strategic off the court development plan for our guys. And that's kind of exciting as someone that follows this team and is interested to see if they can take a step forward.
Yeah, so I opened the JB portion essentially with the question. You came in last year, and if you remember, he was hired even before they had the front office in place. But between just coming off of that 14-win season and all the change that happened leading into last season, like 2024 offseason was just like a sprint. Like, they were trying to get everything in place. Trajan's getting a staff in place. JB's getting his staff in place. And all the while, like, you're still getting to know, some of the staffers who are already here. Like, you have people that, stayed from the previous regime, such as George David. And, like, there's still roster moves you have to make. So, again, like, last summer was just, like, I won't say chaos, but there was a lot happening in a short span of time. So you couldn't necessarily go into the season with the knowledge base that you would have. Like you're a first time coach, first time GM, so you're not going to, know guys obviously, but also just because of the timing, there was just kind of this rolling process over the course of the summer. So now you come into this season, and obviously you just won 44 games, but your staff is already in place. You're not having to juggle all these different things at once. You don't even have a first round pick this year, so that really just opens up all this, time and bandwidth for other stuff. So that's kind of what I was getting at with the question is like, what did you do with that? Like, what's the difference from this year to last year? And how do you apply that time once you have everything already in place? And yeah, JB, he used the word, we were in an investigative phase, essentially, because there's so much you don't know about the roster. And then compounding that, you don't have Ausar because of the blood clot situation, so they had to learn about him on the fly. So you come into this summer, and it's like, okay, like Ausar's healthy. We saw what he could do. Here's the game plan for Ausar. Here's the game plan for this player, that player. You have specific ideas of what all the players need, and I think the other side of that is NBA players have their own trainers, like they do their own thing, like they don't always have to just do what the team wants them to do. But again, they had that buy-in, from guys being at the facility, working with coaches and whatnot. So, yeah, just a lot of continuity, I think, from last season, and that's just going again from the investigative phase to now this phase where you've got all this information and you can start dialing in on more specific stuff as you try to take that next step.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing I took from that, that's all good. Like I love that, was like, until you coach a guy, it's hard to make decisions. And I think that plays into it as well. You can want something for Jalen Duren, but until you coach Jalen Duren and know exactly what makes him tick and what motivates him and what he wants to be, and then be able to mesh that with what you want him to be, it's hard to make those decisions. So that was just one of the quotes, and I think that was one. If you guys want to see the full actual quote, because I paraphrased some stuff here, it's on O2's Twitter timeline. Like it came straight from the video that O2 posted on JB. I do want to ask you about this. I know you're too modest to like really get into it, and I understand that. And you like your colleagues too much. But YouTube user says, by the way, you can tell who the top dog is, the reporter in the room, by the respect O2 got during media day. You don't have to, like talk about being the top dog, but do you feel a difference in maybe the hierarchy and where you fit into that now that you are the most tenured beat reporter of the newspapers and all of that, compared to maybe year one or year two? Like, is there a little bit of that?
Yeah, well, appreciate a YouTube user. And I would say it's like really it's almost a seniority thing at this point, for real. This is going to be like year 6 for me on the beat, which sounds insane. Like that's such a big number to me. But yeah, this is year 6. Longest tenure, been in the room the longest. I definitely appreciate that they allow me to open with the first question. And like I take that seriously too. Like I feel like the first question has to have the right amount of like kind of easing the subject in. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about it, but yeah, year 6.
Cam, we're going to come to this question in just a bit about the 6'8" thing. Let's go to break. We're going to go to a break. We're going to go to break here. And then when we come back, we're going to look at the offseason roster construction. Obviously, there were some questions about that. And so we'll get into the JD extensions, which not a whole lot of information there, but we got a couple quotes about like how the roster came together and those type of things. So we'll get into that right after this.
All right, we're back for segment 2, and we're just going to continue. We have a lot of quotes here, so we're just going to work our way down and hit the big points here from Media Day.
All right, real quick. Steven asked, is that unusual for reporters to stay on a single beat for this long?
No, it's not unusual. Vince Ellis, my predecessor, was on the beat for a little bit over a decade, I believe. And like you have beat writers like elsewhere in the country who have been with their newspapers like forever. I would say at the same time in this industry, you're probably seeing a lot more movement, especially from younger reporters, just as a point of it of just as an example, my first stop, Pittsburgh Post Gazette, out of college. I was there for like a year and 9 months, and then I made the jump to the Athletic covering the Grizzlies. And the way that timed out, like I was only there for like a year and a half. Like I got there around Halloween, 2018, and like by the time I was hired and onboarded and all that, so I missed like the first 7 8 games, and like I got basically all of that season with Mike Conley and Marcus Gasol, and then they get Zach Kleiman as GM and John whatnot. But I left mid like toward the end of like that 1920 season. So like I essentially took this job like right when COVID hit. Which in hindsight is kind of funny, but I did not. Yeah, we can go ahead. Like I'm talking a lot. Let's go. Go ahead and get to
you're
some.
good. They're asking about it, man.
Yeah.
Cam said you had good questions, Omari. Also, like Koo's question. Shout out Kuka Hill. I will tell people it's a little awkward in there. I've been in those situations before and had questions and didn't ask. Real quick, any Pistons PR people or just the department in general you want to shout out? O2.
Yeah, shout out KG, Cleet, Corey. Those are the PR guys. Mike too. Ben. Hope I'm not forgetting anybody. Brody, he does the cruise, and year 6. So I've actually been here like now 4 times longer than I was covering the Grizzlies. Now that I think about it, but I didn't finish that 1920 season because COVID hit, and then I left for this job. So long story short, like this is the longest I've been somewhere. It's not uncommon for beat writers to kind of hop around, especially early on.
All right, so offseason roster construction, Ivey and Duren extensions. Trajan said, we're excited they're both members of the Pistons. They will have huge roles, ... Whether or not we get deals done, I don't know if that happens. Says he's excited to see them and won't comment until a decision is made either way. I felt like we essentially got nothing on these extensions. Do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. That's pretty much been, Trajan's line this whole offseason. I'll talk about it if we get to that point, or if we don't.
And it was JI and JD's lines as well, right? Like unless I missed something, like essentially their lines were the same.
They were very buttoned up and diplomatic about it. And that deadline is October 20th, by the way, for those who don't know. So they essentially still have 3 weeks.
Yeah. Not bringing back veterans Malik Beasley, Schroeder, Tim Hardaway Jr. This is also from Trajan. It wasn't because we didn't want to. Noted that other teams made competitive offers, and there were, of course, quote unquote, investigations that altered their plans. Listen, I'm not trying to push back on Trajan. I think the Dennis Schroeder one makes sense. I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr. signed a minimum. My guess is Tim Hardaway Jr. just wanted to go try to win a championship in Denver. Maybe when he says competitive offer, that's what he means. It's semantics here. We've talked about.
I think he was talking a little bit more about Schroeder with that one too, because obviously Sack not only paid him but offered him the chance to be a starter, which wasn't going to happen here. So that was part of it.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like it's very nitpicky, but and again, part of competitive offer is getting to play with Nikola Jokic and a team that's probably second in the West right now going into the season, especially with the injury to Fred VanVleet. The guys you mentioned, they helped us a ton. I don't want to dismiss that at all. We're appreciative of all the things they've done to help us grow. The business of basketball dictates that change happens. That's from JB. Here's the one that we had a comment asking about earlier. Advantages of adding size in free agency. We can play 5 guys who are about 6'8" if we wanted to and be extremely fast and be able to trap more and switch defensively. I don't necessarily want to hold JB to that. That just kind of got my antenna up in terms of, okay, that would be interesting. Like what would that be? A Cade, Duncan, Ron, Ausar, somebody at Karras isn't 6'8" for sure, but something along those lines, and you just cause chaos and you play fast and you press. I don't know what I'm not going to ask you if they're going to do it. O2. I'm asking you if you would be interested in something like that. Would you be interested in seeing that kind of chaos lineup in some capacity?
Yeah, so they could. I mean, outside of Ji, who's 6'4", almost everybody else in their rotation is 6'6" and up.
I guess Tobias. So, Tobias is 6'8". There you go. There's the other.
Tobias is 6'8". I think he's listed at 6'9" this year, actually. But between Beef Stew, Tobias, they're 6'9". Ausar, Ron, I think are 6'7". Cade 6'6". Everybody's within 2 inches of 6'8". So Like that counts. Plus, if Cade has his hair out, you get like an extra inch or two from the hair. So we could just call Cade 6'8" for the purpose of this exercise.
I
But
love that J.I.'s comment from you was about his hair, and it was two different. Was it just his hair? What he had done with his hair? I thought maybe there was something else, but what he was rocking. So
yeah,
as somebody that is not hair inclined, I always appreciate what people that are hair inclined do with theirs.
yeah. Ji, like he came in with braids and then he cut his hair and then he grew the braids like back out. So just seeing this arc for him has been great. As somebody who also grew his hair out.
Nah, yours is always nice. I like when you let it just go a little bit. Like I know, like you come on and it's I like that. So all right. Expectations for the year. Trajan said these guys have been great. I wanted to see how our players attack the summer after what happened last season. And we're in a different place than we were a year ago as far as internal and external expectations. I thought that was interesting. Like Trajan has been very transparent with things. He spent all last year talking about what his expectations were for the team. He mentioned how I felt like he mentioned that team exceeded those expectations. But this year, listen, I don't care what the external expectations are. We're all going to talk about it the way we talk about it. The fact that he specifically says we're in a different place than we were a year ago as far as internal expectations, to me says Trajan is expecting something in terms of growth from this team. While he also says Pistons are a target for opposing teams now. We're not going to surprise anyone, but I don't think our mindset has changed either. This group is still hungry. Thoughts on just kind of that mindset and expectations from the team, for themselves, I guess.
Yeah. So like there's always this line front offices try to toe as far as like expectation setting on media day. Like if you know you're not a playoff team, then you're not going to say we're making the playoffs. You're going to say, we have growth mindset or, game by game or, some cliched variation of that, right? But you got a little bit of both yesterday, whereas Trajan, did not necessarily say, oh, like we need to make the playoffs. So like there's a mandate and like, Tom Gore's like he's never been one to do that since I've covered the team. His phrase is no limits. You're not going to put a limit on it, but also you're not necessarily going to project what's going to happen. But Trajan was asked pretty early on, is player development still the foremost goal, or is it more so wins and losses? And he said the goal really is to merge those two things. He's been pretty consistent in saying like this team ultimately goes where Ivey, Duren, Ausar, Cade, obviously those guys improving, takes the team. You also understand that growth is not always linear. Sometimes guys, stagnate or like it could be anything really. Like you don't really know until you're in it. So one thing he did say is that the players, and we kind of heard this from the players themselves too, have been more forthcoming about, like we need to make the playoffs. We need to not just make the playoffs, but make a run on top of that and build off of last season. So it's fair to say that if the Pistons were to miss the playoffs or, go out the same way, there would be some feeling on behalf of the players of failure. But Trajan's still trying to walk both paths. Like you made the playoffs last year, so obviously that sets. At the same time, you have all these guys who are about to be extension eligible, can start on the team already. Like we don't know. So next season for the front office, and this also goes back to what JB talked about as far as just the amount of information you have about a roster. This is like stage 2 almost of evaluation. Like let's see what JI can do with LT season. Let's see what Ausar can do with LT season. They're still figuring things out. So, you don't want to be figuring things out about key players and then also be like, oh, and we got to win a championship too. So they're kind of walking two paths, but it's kind of the same path at the same time, I would say.
Yeah, I like that. The second phase of the first phase was like, do we have NBA players? Like, what are these guys? Are they real NBA players? And most importantly, is Cade Cunningham a perennial all-NBA player, which I think I absolutely believe. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you probably believe he's in somewhat of the same level that I do. Now it's figuring out, okay, what do we have behind that? Who's the number 2? Who's the number 3? And I was thinking about this, like that is important because you have to know who that guy is, because then it allows you to know who to go and target. If JI is going to be a part of this, then you don't want to go target a 6'4", off ball guard wing to be that guy. Now you're looking more at a winger forward or, whatever. Like, I just think this is going to give us that second wave of information that truly is like, what is the young core? And speaking of it, and you alluded to it a little bit more as well, Trajan said, what I talked about at the start of the summer, as our young core gets better, we will get better as a team. And then also said, we felt it was right to stay where we're at and let our young core continue to develop. We want to see where these guys can go and what their potential and ceiling is. And right now, we don't know. Eventually, we'll understand what we need to complement this group. Like, to me, it can't be any clearer than what we've been saying, O2. Like, Trajan, word for word, says, we want to see where these guys can go and what their potential and ceiling is. And right now, we don't know. So to me, that says Trajan does not have his full evaluations on at least some of these guys. But eventually, we will understand what we need to complement this group. I love the mindset. Like, this, just as somebody that follows the team, watches the team exclusively, does all this work, I love hearing that from the head decision maker, because I think his mindset on where they're at is perfect and has kind of been right in. Maybe I like it because it's in line with what we think and what I've been talking about, but it just seems like they're right where they need to be with that line of thinking.
Yeah, like they're not going to like fast forward this thing. You look at some of the moves every team's made, where Orlando goes get Desmond Bain, Houston goes gets Kevin Durant. Like that's where the Pistons eventually will get to, where your core, like you've already extended some guys, and it's okay. Like now we know we need Kevin Durant because we can lock out anybody, but we can't buy a bucket in the playoffs, which kind of was the same issue that Houston and Orlando both had, which is why they went out and got really good offensive players. But the Pistons are probably still a year from that point, at least. And and they're just like a step later in their process. They have 1 year of good basketball to go off of, and like for reasons we mentioned, that wasn't even a completely complete year. So still evaluating. Maybe this time next year, you're at a place where not only do you have a better idea of your roster, but you also know financially who you're extending, who you're not extending, and then from there, okay, now we can go get this tier player who could do X, Y, and Z.
JB just said, didn't get to evaluate Ivey and Ausar together much last season, but believe it can be a weapon. If you have them on the floor as the wings, that's probably the fastest pairing of wings you'll find in the league. Just interesting. Another comment from JB about playing fast and all of that. Let's talk about Jaden Ivey specifically. This one wasn't super insightful from Trajan, but it's been a tough road for him, especially seeing our season, not being able to participate was tough emotionally, but he was still there for those guys, which meant a lot to everyone. Said he's going hard in the gym with full contact. The only reason I brought that up, Omari, was it does seem like J.I. is like full go, ready, 100%. Was that your impression as well?
Yeah, the word from everybody was that like he's pretty much back. Tobias kind of shared an anecdote in Vegas. He said Duncan Robinson was like, J.I. is moving really well. Coming off the injury, huh? And Tobias was like, yeah. So it sounds like the speed's back. Just the nature of the injury, like, leg injuries, can always make you hold your breath a little bit. But, from everything I heard, it was a, pretty clean break and no setbacks during recovery. So.
Our guy, RB Nesbitt, been a follower and a supporter for a long time. What's going on, guys? Got to watch this later. Great for the outstanding content. O2, you're the OG now. You get to ask the first question. This is when you know that Pistons fans are into it, O2, because they know that you were the dude in the room. No, YouTube user, don't get ahead of yourself. Trust me, we are going to talk about Isaiah Stewart, but it's not his turn yet. So give us a second. Staying on J.I. on taking more of a play. I thought this was fascinating. This was literally one of the more fascinating things. It's crucial. Just watching the playoffs. Obviously, when I got Hart, Dennis Schroeder, watching him play and how he dissected the defense and making the right reads is something I can pick up to help the team this year. And I want to jump just a little bit because Marcus Sasser said he learned a lot from Dennis Schroeder last season as a smaller guard and plans to use some of the tricks he picked up. I thought it very interesting that two different players, without being asked specifically to name somebody, brought up Dennis Schroeder and kind of things they picked up on, learned from him. I thought that was really interesting, O2.
Yeah, that definitely stood out. Given that Shooter played what, 25 games or so
I think it was
after he arrived at the deadline.
28. Yeah, and
28,
plus the play.
6 playoff games. So he wasn't here like that long at all. But I think especially in hindsight, the element that he brought was just really, really strong veteran point guard play, which this team has not always had. You look at they're supposed to have it for Monte Morris, but he was hurt almost the entire time he was here before he ended up getting traded. And then before that, they had Corey Joseph, but it's just been a while since they had anybody like Dennis Schroeder who could just come in and like immediately just the offense is moving. Like there is very little adjustment for him. I mean, he's Dennis Schroeder. Like we see what he does. Like with Team Germany, great player, obviously. And it seems like he really had an impact on Ji and Sass in the short time that he was here. I think the biggest thing is just running the offense, right? Like he's a guy who really understands pace and putting players in positions to succeed. And I think Ji and Sass probably both being a little bit more like combo guards. Like there are some point guard nuances that they could pick up. So that clearly rubbed off on them. Just seeing what Schroeder did and understanding like, okay, it's not just scoring and it's not just raw assists. It's like everything, right? It's just how you conduct the game, and if you could do that for 12 to 20 minutes a night, depending on how much Cade plays, then obviously that kind of elevates you and gives you something that this team needs.
Speaking of Cade Cunningham, what playoff experience will do for Cade? This is from Trajan. We got to feel that physicality and experienced team, and you don't understand what it takes until you experience that, ... He's attacked that both between the lines on the court and in the weight room and conditioning. O2, we've been talking about this all off season, but it continues to be a theme that Cade Cunningham really learned about what he needed to be physically to hold up against an 82 game schedule and then a playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, there's 82 game regular season shape, and then there's you're playing until May shape. Against a team like the Knicks where the refs are just going to let the two teams kind of beat each other up for 6 games, right? And K is probably getting it the worst because there's nobody else on the team that can really take that type of pressure off of him. Versus the Knicks, where like even when the SAR came in and they shut down Brunson, it's like, oh, now you got to worry about Cat, and even OG and Michael Bridges knocked down some big shots here and there, too. So Cade, he said a big focus this offseason was conditioning. Like we've talked about this on the pod a lot, so we don't need to rehash too much.
Yeah.
But I think that's an area of his game that could grow a lot and really like help him, especially late in games, when he's pounding the ball, and he's had one of the biggest roles in the league for a bit now. So all of that kind of plays into that. But Cade is, somebody who, if you could just get that extra 20%, right? Like that extra 20% could make a lot of difference late in games when you got to hit those clutch shots. And I think that Knicks series too just showed like conditioning allows you, like if you're Brunson, to be able to do those late game theatrics, right? Like all that goes into play. So I think that was an eye opener for the team.
The other big thing I want to hear, and this was straight from Cade, he didn't emphasize it in this way, but he mentioned another healthy offseason for me, is what Cade said. And I thought that was interesting because we always talk about like Ausar getting his first healthy offseason and those type of things. But for Cade, it's another one. Like he's getting to build off of a healthy offseason into a healthy season where he performed well and got new data because he played more competitive basketball and into the playoffs. And now he gets to stack that with another healthy offseason. Like again, I listen to these things, I read these quotes, and there's certain ones that jump out to me. And that was one that jumped out from me with Cade, was him saying like, okay, I get to stack another offseason on top of the ones I've already had along with this new data. So I think here's my biggest thing. And you can tell me, we had a comment earlier from YouTube user. I really think Cade is the perfect balance of confident, self-aware, and just a good leader person. Here's what I said about Cade's quotes. I wasn't in the room, obviously, but I kind of love that he doesn't seem to have a ton to say other than he's ready to hoop. Like I just felt like he was there, like, and he just wants to be ready to hoop. There's not a whole lot of other fluff or anything like that. It was like, we work hard, we have the off season. He mentioned efficient shot taking. He mentioned maybe like trying to work out with Melo or some different things. But ultimately, it's like Cade's just a hooper and he just wants to play basketball, is a lot of times my vibes.
Yeah, very much just business. For Cade, like you're coming off of last season, and hey, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. You got to bring him on the pod, Bryce.
No, we are not. So for the audio only, Royce, who I record in his room, is currently shirtless, getting his clothes for school, and is missing a single front tooth right now because one grew back in and the other did not. He absolutely, who knows what that little guy will say. So
does Royce have shirts? I don't think I've ever seen him with a shirt.
Royce, show the shirt. They don't believe you have one. Show him the shirt. This is gonna start a fight because I think it's a Chiefs shirt. So yeah, we got a Chiefs shirt here. So Lions fans are about to cancel the pod. So
that's okay. Lions got that last. We ain't got to get into it.
No, somebody already asked because they play in a couple of weeks. So
yeah, no, I was going to make a Lions Chiefs comment, but no, we're not going to get into that.
No, we're not. That will ruin our friendship. O2, yeah. You know this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, we can't have a fight on the pod in front of our listeners.
Back to Cade.
No,
finish up on Cade.
Yeah, no, but yeah, he's ready to hoop. He's ready to hoop. Not a whole lot to talk about. We saw what happened last season. And Cade talks a lot anyway. So, I mentioned earlier how the players pretty much all on the same page, and that was Cade as well. Like, we know what we can do. Like, let's rock.
All right, let's go to a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about another one of the members of the young core in Ausar Thompson.
All right, we're back with segment 3. We still have a few players to get to. Let's open with Ausar really quickly. If you're talking like just raw excitement that certain codes can produce, I would say maybe a lot of the most exciting ones have to do with Ausar.
Yeah, JB, Ausar with the ball in his hands. He's a nightmare. We look at how he can get the ball in his hands more, especially in the open floor. I think that's something we'd all want. Again, another reference to playing fast, though, O2.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier, but JB said like Ausar and J.I. next to each other, like that might be the fastest wing pairing in the league. But like, just to reiterate what I said earlier, like Ausar came into last season not making his debut until late November, and then when he did come in, he was only playing I think 4 to 6 minute stretches. Just because he was getting his win back. He only averaged, I think, 24 minutes last season. So, yeah, like Ausar coming into a year where he's healthy, like his win is back up, and he's had all this developmental work. It's like, what can he do? Like, they talked about putting the ball in his hands. Like, they talked about what he can do defensively, this and that. It sounds like that's one thing that we will see is, like, Ausar having the ball a little bit more. Like, whether that's transition and they really want to get out and run, whatever it may be. I don't know what we're exactly going to see from Ausar next season, but like it's going to be expanded compared to last year. Because so much of last year too, I mean, like, what's so impressive about him, especially on offense, is that he doesn't have a shot, yet he still kind of finds those areas to make it an impact offensively. So what does it look like now that you could probably drop some plays for him and you have a better idea of what that athleticism looks like?
The other thing, there's a lot of him and Ron Holland conversation. Yeah. So from Ausar, cause chaos when asked about him and Ron together, just being able to cause chaos and turn it into offense, make those fast breaks and be able to get as many stops in a row in general when we're on the court. That's what we bring to the team. On forming a quote unquote 9-5 defense. I love this. I'm definitely still in this, referencing their numbers. Ron Holland II said, one thing I want to pick up from him is right after games, he's straight to watching film. I think this speaks to like who Ausar is. You see this uber athlete and all of that, and then you don't realize the nuance of what he does to grow his game. Right after the game, he's straight to watching film. It's helped him defensively and offensively. We're two different types of defenders, but we both cause chaos. Seems to be a theme with these two guys, O2.
Yeah, quickly to that point on Ausar. Every time we go into the locker room after the game, like depending on the way the game went, it'll be a full exuberant locker room, or it'll be a little bit of a quieter, more subdued locker room. But either way, 9 times out of 10, Asar will be sitting at his locker, jersey still on, didn't change, didn't shower, just watching the game he just played, like literally just reviewing clips, this and that, and he'll do that almost the entire time we're in the locker room. I've been in a good amount of locker rooms. I've been around a lot of players. I haven't seen many who like I've seen just watching film as
Love it.
often as that. So just beyond the habits, that's one thing about Ron. Like he talks about picking up that habit. He talks about watching Cade and trying to pick up some of those things. But yeah, you have 2 6'7" athletic guys, and Ron said that there are two different types of defenders, and they're also two different types of athletes. But
Yeah, yeah.
either way, like they're the type of guys that are have the capability of overwhelming opposing teams. So yeah, 9 to 5. Ron is number 5 now. I didn't catch that at first, but I do like 9 to 5 a lot. I don't think that was intended, but clearly at some point they kind of realized like, oh, like we can brand this for sure.
No, they definitely make the shirts, print the shirts. I want to finish on this, how we can help the half court offense, because I do think that's important. Like, well, all of this chaos and playing faster and all of that stuff matters, and I'm excited about it. They do have to play in the half court, especially on the offensive end. He said being more aggressive, 1, and 2, getting to my spots, getting to the midi and pulling up, which I think is my favorite part of this quote. Taking the corner 3, obviously that's something we've always talked about, and then coming off screens and forcing the big to make a decision between me and JD and whoever might be in there. I think what I love about that is we've talked about the midi thing. Bring back the midi, Ausar. Get to 8 to 10 feet, jump higher than everybody else on the floor because you can, and just shoot that shot. And then also him talking about coming off that screen. If he's working with JD, that means we're looking at some sort of ball screen handoff type of situation. I love putting those guys in actions together, because if they're in the action together, they're not in the dunker spot together or standing in the middle of the lane together. May mean Cade's playing off the ball a little bit. I'm okay with that at times, but I love the idea of an Ausar JD ball screen pick and roll situation. And now you're spacing with Cade, J.I., Tobias, Cade, J.I., Duncan Robinson. And I'm okay with that. I think that would be some fun actions to do in the half court offense as well.
Yeah, I think kind of going back to the backup point guard discussion, like who has the ball, when Cade sits, or you just want to give Cade a rest. You talk about J.I. and Sass, but like Ausar, I think is in that group too. He certainly could pass the ball. He's talked about working on his handle. And he talked about knocking down corner 3s too, which I thought it was interesting that he specified corner, but it makes sense. Since that is one of the most important shots, and also the shortest 3-pointer, which is a good place to start. But beyond that, yeah, like you want to see if he could knock down some mid-range shots. You want to see if he can like handle the ball, and essentially you just want to put him in scenarios where defenses aren't just playing like 12 feet off of him like they did last season. Because the other issue is that, yeah, like him and JD are both non-shooters. You can survive with 3 floor spacers. Aside, I'm wondering like how much they end up playing Duncan Robinson, because they absolutely need like kind of like that knockdown guy in that unit. But yeah, if you don't want to start standing around, then naturally you're just going to put the ball in his hands and try it that way.
All right, Isaiah Stewart, coaching staff has talked to me about taking 3-pointers again this season. 2 seasons ago, I shot almost 40% from the 3. It's a weapon, especially when we play certain teams and different coverages. I look forward to bringing that back. Thank you, Isaiah Stewart. Like, I literally almost said it to him at Summer League. He came over. I don't know if he actually knows me. Maybe he just recognizes my face, but anytime we walk past each other, he'll always acknowledge me. All of the guys are super chill, super cool. But Stu especially will always at least shake my hand and say what's up or whatever. And I always get to like, I don't want to bother him or whatever. I want to be like, Stu, man, can we please bring back the 3-pointer next year? Of course I didn't. I chickened out, but I was so excited to see. This was my favorite quote of the day, O2. And I know it seems silly, but Isaiah Stewart talking about this definitely caught my attention very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think some of him not taking 3s last season was the coaching staff coming in And again, like you haven't seen these guys up close as much, so you're kind of just going off a body of work. And like Stu showed that he could knock threes down. Like he shot it pretty well the previous season. He had 2 years of shooting it with volume, but I think
Real quick, Omari. So 38% on just under 4 attempts in 23-24. And that was he didn't play a ton of games. That was 175 total attempts. The year before, he was 33% on 200 total attempts. So just for reference, in his career, he's now shot almost 550 threes and is right at 35%. So like you're right on the brink there when you consider volume and percentage, but I mean, definitely worth it.
Yeah, and I think from a lineup standpoint,
Yep.
the coaching staff decided pretty early on, like we're just gonna have Stu stay at center. I think they felt most comfortable was just a center rotation of him and Duren, rather than kind of toying with the two big lineups that they had been doing previously. And I think a byproduct of that was also just Stu being parked in the paint, not taking as many threes. Part of having the full season of data on players is you get more comfortable expanding the responsibilities on the floor, and because of that, yeah, like they're going to have Stu back to shooting 3-pointers. Uh, just an acknowledgement that he can do it, but also they could use that spacing. I think in the front court. I don't think they have ruled out the two big lineup. Like I do think against teams such as Milwaukee or Cleveland, that's something they could look to do. Just given that if you're not playing Stu and Duren together on some capacity, or Paul Reed or somebody like Giannis, Miles Turner, I just don't know how you match up with that unless you feel comfortable putting Tobias on Miles, which you could do probably honestly, but long story short,
there's more teams than that, Omari. Like the Knicks are talking about going.
The Knicks,
Cat Mitchell Robinson. The Cavs have Mobley and Allen, which Mobley's a little bit more of a mobile big. Miami's
so
talking about
bias on him,
yeah. Miami's talking about Bam and Khalil Ware. The Nuggets mentioned yesterday playing Jokic and Valanciunas together. Obviously, the Wolves do some version of it. The Thunder can do a version of it. There's just multiple teams. It's not every team for sure. The Mavericks are going to play super big. The Rockets have leaned into a Steven Adams, Alperen Şengün lineup at times. Obviously, the Grizzlies, when fully healthy. The Spurs may do it with Wemby. Like, I just named 10 teams who, to varying degrees, may do some sort of quote-unquote double big lineup where Ausar or Ron or maybe even Tobias isn't the best matchup for one of those two guys. They may be able to hold up fine, but at least it gives you some optionality, especially if one of those guys, like if Tobias isn't available or something.
Yeah, plus Tobias can't do it like all game either. You probably don't want him to do it all game either. Cavs and Milwaukee obviously are in their division, so you're going to see them 4 times over the course of the year, but you're right. Like a big percentage of the league could go to those lineups if they want to. So you need some sort of counter for that. And again, like you probably have the solution on your roster already, with Beef Stew, who, that's probably shown that he can handle more minutes too than last year. So there's a lot of reasons to go to that 2 big lineup, and also for him to shoot threes and unlock those aspects of his game.
All right, a couple more. We may have to hit these a little quicker. I apologize that we may not give them their due respect. Isaiah Stewart, Robinson on playing with Duren and Stewart. I've never been around people who are such willing screeners. Stu literally gets mad at me in practice when I'm not using his screens enough. That's from Duncan Robinson. We've talked about that chemistry, what they had with Malik Beasley. Chili says, thoughts on Duncan working with the bigs on screens. Will this help with our bad moving screen fouls? One thing I want to quickly say on that, Stu's actually did stay kind of the same in terms of his minutes. They actually went back up from the previous 2 years in the same amount of minutes. Duren actually had less offensive fouls last year than the previous 2 years in more minutes. So I do think Duren has gotten better. But yeah, there's going to have to be some real chemistry between Duncan Robinson and those guys on the little drop pass on the DHO and stuff like that. But it was an interesting comment from Duncan Robinson on those big guys.
Yeah, they've already talked about that. Like Stu obviously sets really, good. Dwayne Casey used to call them highway screens.
Yep.
And like Duren too, it's not just the screening, but the passing, and there's been talk about like what Duncan and Bam did in Miami, and how Duren maybe could take on some of that type of playmaking role I mean, Duren averaged 3.5 assists and like half the turnovers in the playoffs. So, like, talking about guys who can handle playmaking responsibilities, I think you got to put him in that category too. But they're very much has with the filling out process with those two bigs and Duncan to make sure Duncan's getting the shots that they need him to get.
Are they cleaning right outside your window?
They're doing something. I don't know. Like I keep my window cracked at night so I can get like that cool air in.
I love it.
I should have closed it. It was like
No,
it was quiet this morning, and
no,
now
no, no.
you know.
It's been fine till now. It's gonna be okay. It sounds like they're like literally washing your windows or something. I was like, that's tough. Okay,
Yeah, I know what's
Jalen
going on.
Duren. Duren's probably the guy that didn't get enough love in this podcast. Listen, we got games again less than a week from now. We'll be able to talk about all these guys. I think the quote I definitely want to talk about is he expects to be better defensively. Mobility wise, I've gotten in a better space in terms of how my body is moving and being more explosive, quicker on the court. Reaction times, I think you'll see a huge step forward. I mean, again, it's just a quote, but I like hearing Jalen Duren talk about improving his defense still.
Yeah, he's talking about specific stuff like mobility and timing. I know it's media day, and there's always I'm the strongest I've ever been, leanest I've ever been, this and that. But he did say this is the best I've felt. You know, body fat down, strength up. But like some of that with him too. Like you go against the Knicks and you understand. Okay, like there are the Mitchell Robinsons, and then there are the Karl Anthony Townsends, and there's just very different asks of what you have to do to defend those two types of guys. We talked about Duren's defense a lot, about how he got better as the year went on. So the task for him really is just picking up where he left off. Not having another slow start, but just coming in, dialed in with that level of engagement. From day one. So he's talking about mobility, space, all that. Like that tells me that him and the coaching staff talked very directly about where he needed to improve, and that's something he's trying to handle head on.
I want to address this real. So Jeremy Goldberg said, "Why isn't Ivy just the starting shooting guard in option? I don't get why he has to also be the backup point guard to fit on this team, according to all the pundits, podcasters." I don't think it's like, to me, that's maximizing your roster. I mean, whenever you think about how the two best players work together, Shea and J-Dub play together, but then J-Dub runs the second unit and gets a chance to rock. And whether that means he's on the ball all the time or not, Jeremy, I don't necessarily care. But I think you want to have your second best player be able to run the team in the non-best player's minutes. And maybe I haven't done a good job of kind of explaining that, but that's kind of where I'm at with it in terms of J. So whether it's J.I. or somebody else, no matter who it is, if they would have traded for Jaren Jackson Jr., I'd be saying the same thing, not obviously playing point guard, but Jaren should be on the court in the non-Cade minutes. So to me, it's about staggering minutes. So you always have one of your two best players on the court. So they work together fine, but then also they work separately okay as well. So that way you always have these big threats on the court throughout a 48-minute game.
Yeah. Like we say, shooting guard, point guard, all that. Like really, J.I. is going to have the ball. Like he's a ball handler, and they're going to put the ball in his hands when Cade sits because, he can make plays happen with the ball. I don't think he has to be the backup point guard. I think naturally if you are designing the rotation, there's going to be times when K is not on the floor and you need somebody else on the floor who's going to make the defense think twice about who has the ball, and that's J.I. So you call him point guard, shooting guard, you could call him whatever, but the ball's going to be in his hands, when K is on the floor, and especially when he's not on the floor too. And that's just, teams stagger their best ball handlers. It's not really back up anything. Like that's just how the rotation shakes out, and that also allows J.I. to get more minutes and more touches as well. So I think it's beneficial for everybody. You're muted.
Real quick, Chaz Lanier on Detroit. The food is super good. I had some soul food the other day, and it was amazing. Everyone is super cool and super amazing. Kind of reminds me of the South being in Tennessee. You asked which soul food spot, and he went to Hattie Mae's. Have you been to Hattie Mae's?
I haven't. I'm actually gonna try to go today. I was gonna go yesterday and they were closed. So yeah, I'm gonna check. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out and see what's going on because I could always go for some good soul food.
All right. Last thing here, because I have 20 minutes and then I need to be in my classroom or I will get fired because this is on Facebook and people can see me right now. Steve T says there needs to be a bet for the next week's Lions Chiefs game. Steve, we appreciate your support. We love you. We love all of our supporters. Hit like, subscribe, all of that. There will absolutely not be a bet and very little conversation about that game whatsoever.
As mentioned 2 weeks earlier, too. That's on October 12th, so we can lead into it.
As mentioned earlier, this would not be healthy for the podcast or O2 and I's friendship and relationship. A couple years ago, you can ask my wife, I was terrified they were going to meet in the Super Bowl that year. I was stressing. I have all of those words muted on my Twitter. Chiefs, Lions, Hutch, Andy Reid, all of it's muted. So, guys, this was fun. I've gotten to where I do enjoy media day, even though a lot of it is best shape of my life stuff. I think there are some interesting quotes, and I thought yesterday's was really good. I thought you got some real insight into maybe where the team was thinking, roster construction, playing style, the offseason development, all of that stuff. I thought it was good stuff. So definitely good to take. We need an end of the season lawn prep update. I mean, my lawn is looking nice, other than the little man has been playing in the front yard now every day. And my daughter and my wife are out there bumping a volleyball. So the front yard's starting to get mashed down a little bit. And then now the backyard's really start. Also, I do need to ask this question from the chat at some point. I don't have time right now. Dogs in the neighborhood keep peeing and pooping in my yard. What is the correct way to handle this situation? Because I love our block and I love our neighbors and I love everybody on it, but their dogs continuously, like, they killed a spot this big in my yard because the dog pees in the same spot every time. I'm not putting that comment on the screen. I need an answer. Somebody let me know the right way to handle this. So anyway,
the answer is just to throw the whole line away because you don't need it.
Stop, quit. And here's what I need
They're
you guys to
They're not going to be peeing and pooping in my line. I can tell you that.
That's because you won't. Yeah, they will. Because they don't pee in rocks. All right, I gotta go to school. I gotta go to my job. O2, take us away. We'll be back next week after the first preseason game.
All right. Big thanks to our audio producer Robin Chen, our editor in chief Nicole Avery Nichols, our executive producer Bill Bradley, and a big shout out to West Davenport as always. And we'll talk to you all next week.